It's 22 degrees here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, this lovely day, the 13th of August, 2024. So do believe me when I say it's a cool day here in Abuja. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. And just in case you're wondering where the rest of my crew are, well, they've asked me to recruit you to be my company this morning. So please, I'm going to be asking you to send in your comments and thoughts on different segments of this program, starting, if you prefer, from this very lovely view, which we are going to be showing you shortly, of the Eagle Square here in Abuja. Yes, you can see that. Beautiful as always, especially from the aerial view. Or you can say that perhaps it is now in need, when you look at the asphalt in the Eagle Square, maybe you can do with a fresh coat of asphalt, certainly. But we're showing you more than just the Eagle Square this morning, which has, hosted many events, from presidential inaugurations to political celebrations to Independence Day celebrations. We're showing you a little also of the National Arcade, which also houses the National Cenotaph. So you see that road right there in the middle, separating the Eagle Square from the National Arcade. That road is called the Shehu Shagari Road here in Abuja. You see it right there. You're not allowed to walk on the side in front of the National Arcade, but you can walk on the other side, which houses the Eagle Square. Right there behind it is what is called the three-arm zone. Well, just in case you're wondering and you've never been to Abuja, and side by side or sitting on both sides of it is the Federal Secretariat. If you're a regular viewer of this program, you might have seen visuals of the Federal Secretariat maybe more than once. But that picture of the National Arcade, which is where we celebrate the unknown soldier every Memorial Day, every January 18th, when the country, celebrates the sacrifices of our soldiers. That green patch of land you see directly opposite the Eagle Square is where that very important ceremony takes place, and the entire country is wearing the emblem in honor of members of our armed forces. A little more is giving you shots of the Federal Secretariat there, but quite a lovely view of the area very close to the power houses, the seat of power of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So quite a view for you to look at this morning, and maybe a bit of the clouds as well. As I did say, it's 22 degrees here in Abuja. A really cool morning indeed. What is the temperature where you are? Is it raining? In some places we understand it's been raining cats and dogs. Are you experiencing a bit of sunshine? It might be a bit strange, but maybe not unusual. It's the tropics of Nigeria, isn't it? But let me leave you to enjoy the view a bit while we bring you what is happening today. Much later on the program, you will be seeing the business headlines. We're going to be talking about the drivers and expectations as crude oil production increases. That segment will be anchored by my colleague, Ini John Mekwa. So just what are the dailies saying this morning? Well, let us quickly go through what the dailies are talking about this morning. Let's start off with Daily Trust newspapers, and they report a disaster on their front page this morning. Floods kill 7 in Jigawa, Kebbi. Submerged roads, farmlands, displace hundreds in Bauchi, Yobe. That's a lead story on the front page of Daily Trust. On the front page of Vanguard newspapers, distress as harsh economy forces shutdown of over 50 firms. 80% others in low capacity utilization. Over 100,000 employees thrown into job market. Labour begs federal government to intervene. The story can be found on page 38 of the paper. And Blueprint has this as his lead headline. Tinubu commissions 30 CNG-powered buses, says it's road to prosperity. assures energy innovation will save cost, enhance productivity. That's the lead story on the front page of Blueprint newspapers. And you can also see that story that stands out as well. On easy calm in Edo, Shuaibu resumes as deputy governor. That story is right there. He's impersonating, says EDSG. Oshomole, Edo South APC leaders vow to defeat PDP in September 21 Guba. So keeping tabs on what is happening in Edo State as the polls approach in September. And take a look at Daily Independent this morning. They have this: CNG for transport and economic necessity. That's according to Tinubu. Commissions buses to ease commuters' transport needs. NNPC Foundation donates 10 CNG buses to Dapman. That story is also right there on the front page of Daily Independent. The Guardian has this: National Broadband Plan. Federal government may miss 2025 target as 136 million Nigerians lack internet access. That story is on page 6 of the paper. You also have the story: court throws out application to bar Nigerians from further protests against hunger. Okay, just in case you're wondering where that is coming from, you might want to look on the front page of the Guardian newspapers. The story is on page 6 of the paper for you. This Nigeria is also focusing on the 30 CNG buses. Federal government rolls out 30 CNG buses in Abuja, says it's economic necessity all Nigerians must embrace. Each bus to transport 100 persons daily with alternative to diesel usage. So that story is on page 4 of the paper. You also find an explanation from the Nigeria Police Force on why they struck at NLC building to fish out terrorists hiding there. That's also a story on the front page of this Nigeria. And of course, the Daily Times is also highlighting that particular story, which was the explanation given by the Force PRO on Channels Television's Politics Today the night before. So Daily Times has this on the front page: why we raided second floor of NLC complex. That's according to police. Say raid unconnected to recent #End Bad Governance nationwide protests. Police to sustain protection of rights, promotion of youth's welfare. That's according to the IGP. You also see the story: 2024 WASC. WAEC withholds 215,267 results over alleged malpractice. Says schools, supervisors, teachers, candidates perpetrating malpractice not helping educational system. Or they can say that again. That's the front page of Daily Times. And Nigerian News Direct has this: how $400 million annual insurance on ships impedes Nigeria's trade. That's according to NIMASA DG. Alleged sabotage by international cartel dumps initial plan for 50 billion naira floating dock. That story is there as well. Nigerian Tribune has this: how Nigeria walked into food crisis by experts. Identify insecurity as a major disincentive to farmers. Blame anchor borrowers program. Insincerity of state governors' investment. Lack of subsidy on fertilizer. Say elite conspiracy killed OBJ Jonathan's cassava initiative. That story is also on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. The New Telegraph has this: finally, new constitution. Yakasai cautions Tinubu over patriots' demands for political reforms. The writer to that story says hasty move can plunge Nigeria into chaos. Joins OBJ in blaming nation's challenge on current constitution operators. So that story is right there on the front page of New Telegraph. And that's where we wrap up our look of the papers this morning. Or perhaps not totally wrapped up until you have had your say. So please speak to us using the handles Sunrise Daily at channelstv.com. That's, yes, Sunrise Daily at channelstv.com. You can send us a mail using that particular handle. You can also, tell us what you think. Which paper, which headline caught your fancy? I'm going to go through quite a few of them. Daily Trust has this flood scale 7 in Jigawa, Kebbi. It's been pretty quiet here in Abuja. It looks like we're experiencing some sort of August break. But we do remember that the hydrological agency, which usually gives a warning at the beginning of every year, did warn that the floods, the rains this year were going to be plenty. And it looks like Jigawa and Kebbi are feeling the impact of that. I think that people really need to be careful because it doesn't appear that the rainy season is over. I mean, there was some message going around. I do not know if you have received it, because sometimes it's very difficult to rely on what you receive on WhatsApp messages. But I think that the authorities can help us in that particular regard as to whether or not that particular message is true. That even though we're experiencing some sort of break right now, the deluge that could be coming could be far worse than what we have experienced so far. So we would like the authorities to, give us, to confirm that to us as well. But taking also a look at what we saw on the front page of Daily Times, it is cause for concern, examination malpractice, which seems to be, going on an increase. 2024 WASC, you look at the Daily Times newspaper, you see this 2024 WASC, WAEC withholds 215,267 results over alleged malpractice. Well, some people will say that it is alleged until it is confirmed. But nonetheless, if they have good reason for suspicion, then they certainly will withhold it. And I think that's something that should give all of us concern, especially when schools, supervisors, and teachers are involved. And you have to ask, how do we then know the capacity of the students? Well, some people say exams are not the way you actually test whether children, that is debatable. If that's what we've chosen right now, then let's go by it. Let us make sure that our children are actually testing their capacity and seeing what it is that they can do for themselves by themselves. Well, I think that, that's certainly something to mull over as to how we can bring that down. I do know that there's technology also available, to help stem some of these things. But let us see how that eventually pans out if it is deployed in the rest of it. But that is where we will leave our look at the headlines today. As I did say, if anything catches your fancy, you can talk to us, send us a mail, sunrisedaily@channelstv.com, or you use our handle at X, Sunrise Daily Now, at Sunrise Daily Now on X. So that's where we leave it for our look at the dailies. We'll be going into what we have for you this morning. You already saw a bit of it on the front pages, something about Edo State. What is happening there? We did see the deputy governor, the former deputy, well, he is the current, it's unclear. I'm choosing my words very carefully, lest I be liable. But here we see Philip Shuaibu returning as deputy governor after he was reinstated by the court. The Edo State government saying no, they have gotten a stay of execution of that particular judgment, and they maintain that the current governor who is currently there, current deputy governor, is still the one who is there. So we'll see how that conversation goes. That's what we have for you this morning. Please stay tuned.
A clear directive to all staff within the deputy governor's office whom have not yet returned to work to resume forthwith. Failure to comply will result in appropriate sanctions. In line with the judgment, the office of the deputy governor was never vacant. In this regard, all transactions that would have been done in my absence remain illegal, null and void, and of no effect whatsoever. I want to make it known that any bank conducting business with the office of the deputy governor of Edo State without my explicit approval does so at its own risk. Nevertheless, I want to reassure my dear people of Edo State that I am back in my role as the deputy governor of Edo State, ready to perform my duties, fulfill my responsibilities, and deliver on the promises of democracy.
Well, that was the broadcast that gave rise to the controversy which we're about to discuss. Mr. Philip Schreiber. It's very, I do not want to go into the controversy, in what position is he acting as. But that is him saying he has resumed office as deputy governor, reinstated by a court, a federal high court here in Abuja, on the 17th of July this year, after he was impeached by the Edo State House of Assembly in April this year as well. But this is where we are now, because there is also another deputy governor who has been, put in office, Mr. Omobayo Godwins, on the part of the PDP and the government of Edo State. The Edo State government says Mr. Philip Schreiber is impersonating that they have obtained a stay of execution on that particular judgment given by Justice Omotosho of the Federal High Court here in Abuja. Well, this is what we're discussing this morning, and we have two gentlemen to help dissect the issues. We have joining us via Zoom, we have Barrister Dan Ogbegie, who is a spokesperson of the PDP Governorship Campaign Council. He joins us virtually. Thank you so much for joining us, Barrister Ogbegie. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, Dan Ogbegie.
Okay,
thank you for having me, Mark.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. And we also have Mr. Andrew Nwata here, who is the counsel to Philip Schreiber. You're also welcome to the program this morning.
Thank you for having me, Malfair. Good morning.
Quite a situation they have put the presenter of this program, because here I am about to say the deputy governor of Edo State, and the question is, who is the deputy governor of Edo State? Well, Mr. Nwata, this is the situation that we have found ourselves. We saw yesterday the deputy governor doing a broadcast telling the people of Edo State that he has resumed as the deputy governor of the state. But we also saw the actions that preceded that when he returned to the state after he was given that particular judgment, when he got back to the state. And we saw what happened, the violence that attended that, leading to the loss of one life, the life of a policeman. There's still controversy as to how that, was taken. But that very same day, we saw the Edo State government saying, look, we have gone to obtain a stay of execution. That is not the true position of things. So tell us what has happened since that judgment was given, the return to Edo State, and where we are currently.
Yeah, thank you, Malpe. It's quite unfortunate that Edo State is always in the news for the bad reasons, and it's quite unfortunate that it's always a situation of one week, one problem. And when you talk of leadership, as Truman said, Harry Truman, the former US president, he says the buck stops here. We have a governor who chooses to obey the law more in breach than in observance. And I'll tell you, as counsel for the deputy governor, I feel very disappointed. Yes, the government has served as commissioner in two different ministries. I served as the governor's official spokesman. He does not respect court orders. And I'll give you 3 instances. Remember the House of Assembly crisis. He prevented 14 elected APC lawmakers from taking up their seats. Beyond that, we had a situation where local government elections, we had a matter that was in court. For over 2 years, this man ran the local government with political appointees he called liaison officers. Not done yet. Just last year, June last year, the National Judicial Council, the highest judicial authority in this country, recommended 8 persons for appointment as judicial officers. For close to 7 months, the governor refused to swear these people in. I had to go to court. We got a court order. Just recently, he swore in 5 out of 8. I mean, this is not democracy. A situation where one man wants to run government as if he's a sole administrator. So we are not surprised that somebody who was jointly elected with him, he enchanted him, he made the House of Assembly sometime last year to start impeachment. Eventually, they did it in April. On the 8th of April, we went to court. The court gave a judgment on the 17th of July. The governor has refused to obey the order. It's a declaratory judgment. The court said that office was never vacant, that what they did was a pure witch hunt, and as such, interpreted the provisions of Section 188. And I'll tell you as a lawyer in that matter, we got a court order before the impeachment. They didn't obey the order. So if we must protect democracy, it is the likes of Obaseki we should protect democracy from. You remember recently he said that Nigeria will burn. I mean, you cannot take things very personal. Schreiber was elected on a joint ticket. The Commissioner for Information that issued that statement, we were together on lunchtime politics. He does not even understand what the meaning of a joint ticket is. He said that the deputy governor occupies office at the pleasure of the governor. I mean, these are elementary issues. So when you say people who are appointed into public office, they lack knowledge of basic principles, it's very unfortunate. And that is why they can deny that, oh, there's no judgment of the courts, but rather claim that there's an order of stay is a lie. I was in court. We went there. We realized that they were trying to, through the back door, get an order of stay. The court adjourned that matter to the 24th. 24th of September, 3 days after the election. And that is what they cannot accept. So Shaibu is back, and I'm grateful that you started by saying he's the deputy governor. The person Obaseki appointed is the impostor. The constitution does not allow the governor to appoint his deputy. It is by election. The other people gave both of them a mandate, and that mandate will run till on the 11th of November, when that tenure of both of them will end.
Okay, let me come to you, Mr. Ogwebie. I might need to stick with your first name. This is the situation. You have listened to Mr. Enwata on this particular matter, and you have heard what he has said, that it is Mr. Godwins that is the imposter here. What is your own reasoning on this particular issue according to what the law says?
Well, it's quite unfortunate that somebody who said he was a mercenary on national TV some months ago, that he has always been appointed as a mercenary to politicians, to speak for politicians, will constantly be invited to national TV to speak on matters of national importance like this. Now, he's a lawyer, though he's a very young lawyer, but he ought to know that once you file a notice of appeal and stay of execution at the appellate court, then the parties will maintain status quo. So that is the situation that we have in this case, where the Federal High Court heard that the former deputy governor was not validly removed or impeached as deputy governor. So there was a notice of appeal and a stay of execution that has been filed. And that court heard, and it was adjourned to 24th of September. So I don't know why the former deputy governor, Philip Shaibu, is not patient enough to wait. Now, it's not as if he's interested in what the law actually says. It's not as if interested in what the law says. What showed the governor of Edo State as a dictator or as somebody who does not respect the law, as Adaze Enwata is laboring to show in the studio there. You know, it's so clear. So what they are beating about is just political, purely political, to cast aspersion on the PDP as a party, on the governor of Edo State, and by extension, to spread propaganda.
It does appear that we're losing him briefly right there, but assuming, I hope that the connection comes back as swiftly as it went. The question to ask, Mr. Ogwebie, I'm glad that you accept that, you know, the hearing has been slated for the 24th of September. You did accept, you did acknowledge that the hearing for the stay of execution, so it means that the stay of execution has not been obtained. Is that correct?
No, I said once you file a notice of appeal as...
Oh dear. We'll see how we can, you know, continue this conversation with Mr. Ogwebie. But I think what essentially he's trying to say is that the moment that matter has been filed, the moment that there has been, you know, an attempt to obtain a stay of execution and it's been filed before a court, then all parties must stay action. Isn't that what the law says?
No, there's nothing like that under the law. And I must commend my friend. He said, I'm a very young lawyer, and I must accept that, because it is when you're young, you have the energy of an eagle, because I read law reports every week. I buy my weekly law reports. The most recent report is the one I have here. The Nnamdi Kanu's case, the Supreme Court had resolved this issue in applying the provisions of Section 17 of the Court of Appeal Act. The Supreme Court said clearly that an appeal or an interlocutory application, as it's saying, cannot operate as a stay of execution. Very clearly, very precisely, and to the point.
An appeal cannot
operate as a stay. And I don't want to read it. I can say you read it so that Nigerians will know.
No, go ahead and read it.
This is part 1949 of the Nigerian Weekly Law Report, volume 11. On whether appeal may operate as stay of execution, this is Supreme Court talking here. It said, by virtue of the provisions of Section 17 of the Court of Appeal Act, an appeal in civil case shall not operate as a stay of execution of the decision appealed against. This is the Supreme Court talking. So I don't know what Dan is saying. With profound respect, I've been a university lecturer for 13 years. So I don't need to join issues with him. The Philip Shaibu case, I fight it. I got judgment on that. I'm not lawyers that will come on TV and be analyzing judgment of what people have worked hard to do. The PDP delegates case, I won that case, I fight that case. We have 4 appeals, and I know by the grace of God, we also defeat them at the Court of Appeal. As a lawyer, I know my onions. I'm a constitutional lawyer, and I come to speak law. This is what the Supreme Court has said. So what they are saying is out of ignorance. The governor has an attorney general. If I were the governor, I would sack that person. It does not matter if it's my cousin. We're in a democracy. I must respect the tenets of democracy. Philip Shaibu was elected by those people. I was not appointed by Obaseki, as they make us to believe. An appointee of the government cannot take the place of an elected person. We elected Shaibu along with Obaseki on a joint ticket. They don't understand it, and the court has said it clearly. The court gave 6 declaratory orders, the court gave 3 injunctive orders, and it gave 1 consequential order. So it was on the strength of that Philip Shaibu was speaking yesterday, because after he got that judgment, the day he got into Benin City, the government organized thugs to attack him. They shot the police officer, as you noted, of the governorship candidate of the APC who was standing close to the deputy governor. It was a clear assassination attempt, just like Donald Trump. Shaibu missed death by the whiskers. Now we have a governor so proud, talk about burning the country. I mean, we must call Obaseki to order. Edo State does not belong to him. It is not his private property. It's not his fiefdom. So I'm so happy that on the 12th of November, his tenure will end and he was going to face the law.
You said 12th of November.
12th of November, because that's the day you hand over to the new governor, and he's going to face the law for all these infractions he's doing against democracy in Nigeria.
I'm just wondering, though, I mean, when we look at, you know, the fact that right now, let me quickly see if Mr. Dan can hear me. Barrister Dan, can you hear us?
I can hear you very well.
Fantastic. You heard what he said. I mean, he's read a particular part.
I don't know the reason for the network failure, but I can hear you very well.
He's read a particular part that says that the filing of a stay of execution or an appeal does not amount to a stay of execution. So the fact that you have filed for a stay of execution does not mean that you have it already. And as such, Mr. Philip Shaibu should be recognized as the deputy governor. Is that very difficult to understand?
We have a plethora of Supreme Court authorities that says otherwise. We have a plethora of Supreme Court authorities that say that once a party that lost at the trial court files a notice of appeal and an application for stay of execution, the party ought to maintain status quo. That is the practice. That is what is done, done over the years. I will give an example. Their leader in APC, Adams Oshomole, won at the tribunal in 2008. 2008, right. In 2008, he won at the tribunal. Did he immediately go to government house to assume as governor? No. He waited for the PDP and Professor Osumbo to appeal. It was at the Court of Appeal, which was the final court, that gave judgment that Oshomole was then sworn in the next day as governor of Edo State. So this is elementary. Every lawyer knows that. No, you don't even have to be a lawyer to know that.
He cites, just a moment, he cites the Nigeria Weekly Law Report. And he says that this is the latest interpretation. This one was...
he's misapplying that law report. I just explained to you what happens in practice, and that there's a plethora of Supreme Court authorities that also support my position. That is quite elementary, because the trial court is not the court of first instance. The trial court is a trial court. And
would you say...
you have appellate courts. The reason why you have the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. As a lawyer who is a minister in the Temple of Justice, I feel embarrassed that a colleague goes to national TV to daily misinform Nigerians.
Yeah, but isn't it your own side that is misinforming Nigerians? Because as of the day that Mr. Philip Schreiber was, returning to Edo State, and when he got this particular judgment, the Edo State government came out to say that, that has to be disregarded, that they have obtained, that was what they said, that they had obtained a stay of execution. But isn't that incorrect, given, just a moment, isn't that incorrect, given what we now know, that the stay of execution has not been given? Instead, what has been given is a date for the hearing of that stay of execution. So shouldn't Mr. Schreiber be regarded as the deputy governor pending when that stay of execution is heard?
Mount I will forgive you because you are not a lawyer. But I'm telling you the position of the law and the position of practice and what is obtained. Now, if we say that it should stop at the trial court, when the trial court gives judgment, and the person that gets the judgment at the trial court will immediately reap the fruit of his judgment. How about when you now appeal? Will you not say Schreiber should step down again when the Court of Appeal gives a different decision? Just look at it from that point of view.
So from that point, from your own point of view now, are you saying that because Mr. Schreiber feels injured by what has happened at the House of Assembly, and he's gone to court to get judgment, and the judge has ruled in his favor, the court has ruled in his favor, try to assuage his feelings of hurt or of pain, as the case might be. Is the Edo State government trying to, continue to inflict that injury on him through the back door by saying that, well, no, we are obtaining a stay of execution, even though that stay of execution has not been given?
The Edo State government has appealed that judgment by the Federal High Court. That is also their right. They have a right of appeal, which they have done. And what parties normally do is to wait for the appellate court to give the decision one way or the other. And even after the Court of Appeal, there's also the Supreme Court that will adjudicate on the matter. There are 3 layers as far as this is concerned. And all must be exhausted before you can say, oh, you have got a judgment, you are going to reap the fruit of the judgment. But I just told you that their aim is to cause political uproar in the state, to paint the PDP and the government of the state in bad light. We've had all of this before. There have been people who got judgment at the trial court, and they didn't immediately go to reap the fruit of such judgment.
Barrister Dan, I'll come to you, Mr. Enwata, just shortly. I will come to you, but I need to quickly confirm. You do admit that you are yet to obtain that stay of execution. Isn't that correct?
I just told you, yes, that is correct.
So can you really claim that a stay of execution should be executed when you have not yet obtained one? That's the question I'm asking you.
Once you are filed, it serves as a stay.
Then why are you still applying?
Once you apply for a stay of execution,
it is taken as granted. It is taken as given.
Status quo.
Okay.
Pardon?
So you seem to be.
It is not taken as given. The other party, because equity sees as done that which ought to be done. So in equity, the other party must wait for the appellate court. The Supreme Court has deprecated. The Supreme Court has deprecated a party that goes on to try and enforce judgment. Now, how can you enforce judgment by yourself? Judgment of court is enforced by the belief of court.
Okay, this is where we are. Just a moment. Just a moment.
Is not officer of the court. It's not the belief of the court.
Okay,
it's not the court registrar.
So let me come to you, Mr. Enwata, because just a moment, Mr. Dan. Let me come to you. You seem quite amused by his own argument. However, he's actually made a point in the sense that when we see judicial matters, especially with regards to political issues, when it comes to, let's say, elections, more or less, matters that are pertaining to elections, we know that oftentimes when there is a principal in office, maybe as governor, as president, as whatever position it is they are occupying, until all of the, all of the processes are exhausted. Oftentimes we see that that person occupies office until the processes are exhausted. What is making this particular situation different?
I know one thing I like about law is that law is very unique, though dynamic. You find that election petitions, as they are called, are sui generis proceedings. They have their own special laws. And the Electoral Act has made it so for an occupant in office to remain until the final determination by the Supreme Court. That is a special law, as they call it in law, lex specialis. The lex generalis is the Nigerian constitution that governs these procedures. Remember when Ladoja was removed? The matter at the lower court, he didn't win at the lower court, it was at the apex court. So coming back to what we are saying, I have cited the Supreme Court authority. Nnamdi Kanu's case, I didn't write
it's not, that's not a legal matter. I mean, sorry, that's not an electoral matter.
No, with profound respect, this is not an electoral matter. The impeachment of the deputy governor is an electoral matter. It is not.
It has to do with a matter of...
It is not an electoral matter. It's not
no,
with profound respect, Mark, but it's not an election petition, is it?
No, but Nnamdi Kanu's case and what is happening
we're talking of
within
a case,
the political sphere.
We are talking of a case where he said he was illegally rendered to Nigeria. Is that not a human rights issue? It is a human rights issue. Is it not a human rights issue? As a lawyer, this is the law. It is what the Supreme Court has said. And if I gave you this thing to read, you have it to read. Because the words used by the Supreme Court is civil cases.
Just a moment.
In civil cases.
I have asked you to read it out.
Should I read it again?
No, you have read it to the benefit.
Then you should now educate it because it's finding it difficult to accept what I just said.
It's not a question of me or him. It's about the people of it.
This is what the Supreme Court has said.
So just a moment. I mean, you have to take it easy. My point right now is this. He has given examples, and you have also accepted that these are the examples. I mean, if an electoral matter is conducted, somebody doesn't agree, the governor has already been sworn in, he is right there in office as governor or deputy governor, president or a senator or House of Reps member. Oftentimes, they occupy that particular position until all of the electoral, processes, or the judicial processes have been exhausted. Oftentimes you hear, I'm going on appeal, and he's still sitting in office while that appeal is going on. Isn't that correct?
So in this case, yes. Who was elected? Philip Shaibu. The House of Assembly acted a drama. Because he's a lawful occupant, he steps aside. He went to court. The court has said he's the occupant. I mean, it's just simple to understand. They claim they have an order. They've been claiming since the 17th. I went to court, and they know it. And I discovered that the attempt to get the stay did not fly. The same court now said, come back on the 24th. Then what is now the problem? The problem is that the governor does not want Shaibu. Remember, it was the same governor that last year pushed him out of government house. It's a continuation of what he started last year. So don't be deceived. Philip Shaibu has since occupied his office. In that case, I joined the Inspector General of Police as the first defendant. He has restored the security of Philip Shaibu. The DSS has restored the security. The other person who is the impostor has no security. He moves around with vigilante. We know the truth. The governor has kept him as his appointee because the governor wants to score a political point. He comes from a local government. He doesn't want to lose votes. He appointed somebody as his SSG just yesterday. This one government that has been on vacation. The deputy governor, or rather the de facto deputy governor who was the previous SSG that was removed, and members of ESCO went to America. But because of this crisis, the governor quickly appointed an SSG as his replacement. So for us, we have a government that is so irresponsible in Edo State, a governor that will not accept the fact that Philip Shaibu is on the joint ticket. I mean, is that difficult to understand? It's not difficult to understand. The court just made a pronouncement that this man remains a deputy governor. The office was never vacant. But so why is it very hard for them to understand that?
When you look at the controversy, I mean, what really will the deputy, since he believes that the law is on his side, you have talked about how because you also see here the order, the judge asked the Inspector General of Police to restore his security aids, also asked that the governor be paid his salaries and emoluments since April, etc. Has he been paid his salaries and emoluments?
Let me tell you the beauty. I said the governor will leave on the 12th of November. The person that will come after Obaseki will pay. It's a court order. It's an order of court.
So if we accept that this is his current, I mean, that will happen regardless of whatever happens. Yes. I mean, the fact that whatever happens at the end of the day, his entitlements and even his name as the deputy governor will be in the annals of Edo State history books. What is the rush, really?
It's a misinformation that we are worried about. And I say this with
what is the misinformation
and I think it begins with the media, because the media is the fourth estate of the realm. The media owe to Nigeria the duty of always checking facts, right? It took me the pains of going to the Federal High Court to confirm that this matter was for the 24th. But all the media reported that an order of stay was granted. Just yesterday on your PoliticsToday program, Sheryl Akumbaloyo, I have so much respect for him as a journalist, but I feel disappointed. He's a law student. He referred to Shaibu as a former deputy governor. So when you hear things like that, it shows that some persons are taking sides. And I say this with every sense of
I can say
I will take very serious exception to that.
Mr. Nwasa, when you came on the program this morning, I did explain, the problem I had, the conundrum that we all are facing right now with regards to this particular matter. This is what the court has said. We heard from the Edo State government. You also listened to the Edo State government when they said that they had obtained a stay of execution. It's only just today that we're hearing that this stay of execution is going to be heard. The matter is going to be heard on the 24th of September. Meanwhile, there was a deputy governor in office before now. Mr. Omobayo Godwins was in the office, so to speak. Now, the Edo State government says they've gone on appeal. The question is, who then, while all of this is going on, who then is the deputy governor of Edo State? You say that according to the law and according to what it is you're reading here, it is Mr. Philip Shaibu. The Edo State government says we should disregard that the current deputy governor, as far as they know, is Mr. Omobayo Godwins, because they have appealed and they're waiting for this stay of execution. And they've cited a number of practices as well, which puts journalists and which puts every other person who wishes to address these individuals in a difficult position. But I'm going to ask you, because we've seen what happened when Mr. Shaibu tried to return to Edo State. We lost a policeman. A policeman of the Federal Republic died needlessly. So the question is, looking at how volatile the situation is, and we don't care who's on whose part, but looking at the fact that at least one life has been lost over this particular matter in a situation that it ought not to be, would you say that it would hurt that we wait till all of these processes are exhausted to actually know who the true governor, deputy governor of Edo State will be in this particular issue?
It's not difficult to understand because you have what you call your judicial correspondence. And with profound respect, you cannot depend on the Edo State government because they are partisan. And I'll say that it is not even difficult to know who was responsible for that death. Is it possible that Shaibu came into the States and attempted to assassinate himself? I mean, it's just common sense. And I'll quickly correct your impression. This is not just anything. It is in Nigerian law reports, which I've brought here to put a light to what they have been saying, because as the Supreme Court said here, by virtue of Section 17 of the Court of Appeal Act, the Court of Appeal Act is something you can access online. Section 17 says an appeal or any interlocutory application tied to that appeal cannot operate as a stay of execution. That is why you apply for the order. Can you apply for an injunction and say you have an injunction? I mean, it's just common sense. No lawyer can deceive you. I came with this just to put a light to what they are saying. He said there's a plethora of authorities. This is the latest.
So are you saying, just a moment, I pointed out to you, and you are the one who said that when it comes to electoral matters, they are in a class of their own.
But it's not an electoral matter.
That's what I just said.
Philip Shaibu's case is a normal case, and the court has not given an order of stay, which I think the media should tell Nigerians.
I'm reminding
not me telling Nigerians, but the media. You owe Nigerians that duty.
You are in the media space right now, and I'm sure Nigerians can hear you. You talked about sui generis, you talked about, is it sui les specials, or what did you say it was?
No, less specialists. Oh, less specialists, so you have less generalists.
Exactly. So under what platform does this particular matter fall under?
It's a less generalist because it's just a normal procedure, civil procedure. Well, and the court has said for such appeals, it is only where you have a judgment. Filing a notice of appeal or an application for stay cannot operate as a stay.
So are you saying...
I'm happy you also read this. No, I didn't just read it.
Are you saying...
I gave you, read it.
Are you saying then... Just a moment. Are you saying then that the moment we see another... Because Edo State elections are coming up very soon. And we know also that, a governor will be sworn in. We hope that it will be free and fair and transparent and that all the parties will accept whatever comes out, not just only in Edo, but in all the other elections that will be conducted. But are you saying that should the elections be disputed, should any of the parties be aggrieved and go to court and say, look, I won this election, and the court should rule in their favor? Are you saying then that in the future we should see a situation based on what it is that you have read to us and the whole generality of Nigerians, that we will see a situation whereby a governor will leave office while he's also filing an appeal? Is that what you're saying?
You know, I took time to explain to you now that you have two categories here. You are talking of election petitions, which, as I said, are sui generis. You have a less specialist for them. Then you have the general one, which this Shaibu's case fall under. It is only when it becomes a less specialist that the same rules will apply. It's simple, isn't it?
You're saying that this doesn't...
No, it's not. It's not an election petition case. It's an impeachment case. Human rights related. It's different from an election petition, which I told you has its own laws. Until the Supreme Court or the highest court in Oshomele's case, at the time it was the Court of Appeal that was the highest. But now, because of the amendment of the Constitution, Section 285 makes it to terminate at the Supreme Court. So it has its own, you understand, laws, less specialists. Then for the less generalists, as I've said, once you file an appeal, a notice of appeal or an application, it cannot operate as a stay. It is the Supreme Court that has said it in the Nnamdi Kanu's case. And I will specifically state the report. Reported in Volume 11, Nigerian Weekly Law Reports, 2024, Part 1949, page 321, particularly at 328, ratio 37.
Mr. Ogbe, I imagine that you do not agree with him on this particular issue. Do you agree that it falls under less specialists or less generalists, as the case might be, since you want to turn everybody, you want to turn all Nigerians to lawyers?
Honestly, Emata was just amusing me here, and I was just laughing because if you know his history, you will know why he's very bitter, you know, with Godwin Obaseki. He was sacked as commissioner, you know. But I'll just give you an example of the Peter Obi's case. Peter Obi was impeached in, I think, 2006, if I'm not mistaken. And he was removed. He left office as governor of Anambra State. He appealed. It was at the Supreme Court that Peter Obi got judgment. Before he came back, he was reinstated as governor of Anambra State. Now, did Peter Obi say because he won at the trial court, they will not force his way to government house in Anambra? It did not happen that way. So that's why people that are listening. Lawyers who are listening to a matter, they feel embarrassed. And many of them will be laughing. Who is this guy? He has allowed his emotions to affect him, to affect the way he's seeing things. This is just common law. This elementary law is elementary position of the law. And the reason why the Supreme Court has heard in many cases that once a notice of appeal and an application of state of execution are filed, that parties ought to maintain status quo is so that they don't belabor the Court of Appeal or the appellate court. It's so that they don't render their order nugatory. It's so that they don't cause problem. Now, for instance, on the 24th, if Philip Shaibu goes into office now, he's allowed to go back as deputy governor of Edo State. And on the 24th of September, the Court of Appeal grants the state of execution application. What will then happen? Are you going to say, okay, Mr. Philip Shaibu, leave office and let Omobayo Godwins come back to office? It's quite elementary.
Isn't that preemptive? Aren't you preempting what the court will do? What if the court rules otherwise? What if the court says, we're not granting the state of execution?
I'm saying that, however, if the court grants the state of execution.
So now I want you to now tell me what will happen if the court refuses to grant a stay of execution, because apparently the court still has to hear it. Sorry?
There will be an appeal to the final court.
You will appeal the non-granting of stay of execution. Are you saying that you will appeal the non-granting? Is that what you're saying?
I said there will be an appeal as well.
There'll be an appeal on not granting the stay of execution. But what will happen in the meantime? Wouldn't Mr. Philip Shaibu be called the deputy governor then by law?
That is a negative way to look at it, Maupe. Did you even hear the case I mentioned, the Peter Obi case, who was impeached by the House of Assembly of Anambra State, and he vacated office? He appealed that judgment of the trial court. Yes.
I'm going to read out. I'm going to read out a few of the tweets that we've seen right now. Some people are saying that it is true that the governor of Obaseki did not honor court judgment, lawful court judgment. I mean, and they are citing a number of, he said, over the lawful elected lawmakers to be sworn in. would he obey this very one? So they actually agree with Mr. Enwata that indeed he's not been obeying court orders. There's also another one saying, that is from Festus Akimboyewa, saying, great that Philip Shaibu is asserting himself by resuming his duties as the deputy governor of Edo State. The governor of Edo State must comply with the court ruling reinstating Philip Shaibu as the lawful deputy governor of Edo State. So you're not just, I mean, I'm just asking questions, I'm moderating on behalf of Nigerians, but Nigerians are actually listening to both of you and they're sending in their comments. But Mr. Emadibia, this is for you. He says, Mr. Enwata, beg your pardon. He says a notice of appeal and a motion for stay are two separate filings. The law report read out by Mr. Shaibu's lawyer is only when you file notice of appeal. But the law is when you file, in addition, motion for stay, it serves as a stay of execution. This is something from Mr. Emadibia, who is also watching this particular program.
Yeah, with profound respect to Mr. Emadibia, I think the opinion he gave is a personal opinion because it is a practice that once you have either a declaratory along with an executory judgment, the practice is usually that you file a stay of execution. It's a practice. Most notices of appeal will naturally have, because you don't want the man to take certain steps. So that's why you file a stay of execution with the hope that it will be granted. And when the Supreme Court was talking, it was talking based on a notice of appeal, which is already pending before the Court of Appeal, that it does not operate as a stay. I think the Supreme Court has settled it, and I don't want to belittle the point. My friend Dan Ugbege, I will choose not to use invectives on him. He used the word that I was sacked. It's very unfortunate because it was on national TV. I announced my resignation first as part of Obaseki dissolved his ESCO, and I'll tell Nigerians for the first time what led to that dissolution because Nigerians deserve to know. On the eve of the dissolution of ESCO, the governor wanted me to approve, as a member of the State Tenant Board, 1.7 billion naira to buy a software that would not last for more than a year. I refused. I told the chairman of the board, Mr. Keomo, that the governor should tell me why I should approve that. Because when the EFCC comes after him, we who did that approval will be held accountable. The following day, the governor had an ESCO meeting with us. The deputy governor protested that the former secretary of the state government was misusing the funds of the Oil and Gas Commission to ensure that all projects were executed in his local government. I did the analysis. There was a standoff between both of them. The governor dissolved ESCO. And I was labeled as one of the rebels. And I told the governor, I will not come back to your government. Let me be very clear. I resigned because at the time I made my resignation, there was no nominee from my local government, and I said I was not interested in my letter of resignation, and I resigned from the party, and I stated the fact that the governor has refused to develop my local government. This same governor offered me a seat in the House of Assembly on the platform of Labour Party, and I rejected it because I saw that as a great gift, and as such, Dan Ogbegele was sacked as secretary of Umude local government for corruption.
I think that we need
My father was the first chairman of that local government. He was sacked as a secretary of
the conversation,
local government
the conversation before us right now is the status of Mr. Philip Shaibu. That's the conversation before us.
And
I don't think that it serves this conversation to throw allegations.
No, he made certain statements. He has been using insulting language. I choose not to. Describe a lawyer, with profound respect, to describe a lawyer who has put in 13 years as a university law teacher, as a very young lawyer. You were not cautioning him. That's why I've intervened.
No, you have said you were not sacked, and you have given the scenario of what happened, but you have also made another allegation. Quickly, Mr. Ogbege, do you want to quickly say whether or not you were sacked? Were you sacked as well?
First of all, I was never secretary to Omunde local government. This is where you get about there. When you have a hustler, somebody who calls himself... I
don't think that it serves us to use words up and down. But, quickly, you have said you were never secretary. I think that we can leave it there. What I want to know right now is who is, according to, what we currently have and what we know, how is this? How is the declaration being made by Mr. Philip Shaibu, his assertion yesterday, how is this going to be received? Very quickly, you have 30 seconds.
Pardon, what did you say?
The assertion made by Mr. Philip Shaibu that he has resumed office. How is the Edo State government going to support him and let him be able to take his office rightfully?
He's grandstanding. He's grandstanding. There was an ESCO meeting yesterday. Was he in that ESCO meeting? He's grandstanding, and they know what they are doing. The party they have not chosen to support, the APC, the candidate does not have an agenda for Edo people. He's not speaking to Edo people. He has been called out several times by several media organizations to come and speak to them. He's running, they are hiding him. So they are
Okay,
using all these
quickly, your 30 seconds is over.
to
Yes,
hide their
Mr. Nwata.
Philip Shaibu remains the deputy governor. The reason why they are bothered is that the PDP as it stands, they don't have a candidate. The Court of Appeal has dismissed the appeal of Asorome Ighodalo. The Federal High Court has nullified the process leading to his emergence.
That's another issue entirely.
And Edo people at the right time will choose their governor that will replace the present dictatorship Edo people are experiencing.
That was another issue you entered completely. But we have to thank you both for coming. I hope that this particular session has not left Nigerians more confused. I sincerely hope that, you know, there will be peace in the situation in Edo State, and perhaps authorities can help us really, truly clarify who is the authentic governor, deputy governor, beg your pardon, of Edo State. But we have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program this morning. Barrister Dan Ogbegie is the spokesperson, PDP Governorship Campaign Council. He joined us virtually from Benin City. And Mr. Andrew Nwata is the counsel to Mr. Philip Shaibu. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Yeah. Well, Inija Mekwa is standing by, and she's going to be talking about drivers' expectations as crude oil production increases. Over now to you, Ini.
Thank you so much, Mark. What a fiery session you had there, you know, having to deal with all those political issues. All right, now let's do business. And that's, of course, what Mark said is part of what we'll be discussing. So let's start from the oil space, shall we? Global space, we see that the prices edged low on Tuesday, breaking a 5-day streak of gains as markets refocused on concerns about demand after OPEC Plus yesterday. They cut their forecast for demand growth in 2024 because of softer expectations in China. We'll take a look at the numbers right there. We see global benchmark of Brent. Yes, it's in the red. Can you imagine almost 1% cut in just a session? This is for the futures, 0.95%. So even though oil had broken this time yesterday, we're below $80. But now we see that it had hit $80 and above, but then we've lost almost 1% to $81.52 a barrel. WTI at $79.33, also losing almost 1%, 0.91. And Brent had gained more than 3% yesterday after we met, but U.S. crude futures had risen about 4%, even much more than that. And yes, OPEC yesterday, they released their forecast and also the report for August, which tells us the numbers for July. And of course, we'll talk about that later on. So OPEC cut their 2024 forecast. This for the first time that it was made in July 2023, and comes after mounting signs that demand in China has lagged expectations due to slumping diesel consumption, as well as crisis in the property sector, which has hampered the world's second largest economy. Markets are preparing, counting down till tomorrow. United States Consumer Price Index is set to be out. And of course, that's a crucial read of inflation that will tell investors what the Fed will do next. Money markets have already betting in about 25 to 50 basis points cuts by September. Total easing of 100 basis points this year, 2024. Of course, we will see how that goes. Now, out of that OPEC's meeting yesterday, Nigeria's crude oil production went up, according to OPEC, to 1.3 million. Well, we are grateful for these things, you know, per day. That was the number for July. It went from 1.27 to 1.3 recorded in June. That, according to that latest monthly oil market report, the 30,000 barrels per day increase in output comes as OPEC cuts, of course, the global oil demand forecast for the year. So we'll see what that will mean for us. Nigeria's oil rig, however, it fell to 14 in the month of July from 15 in June. We hope to have a conversation on that and find out how this is going to affect the issue of crude availability, which the domestic refiners discussing these days. And talking about local refiners now, including Dangote Refinery, they've raised their crude oil demand to 597,000 barrels per day for the next 5 months. And this marks a significant increase from the 483,000 barrels per day required in the first half of 2024. According to the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, that's the NUPRC, oil companies managed to supply 177,777 barrels every day for the first half of the year. That's far below what even the PIA has said should be given to local refiners. Well, the gap between rising demand and insufficient supply has caused tensions between the 650,000 barrel per day Dangote refinery as well as other refiners in the country. We'll settle on that, but first of all, let's tell you how the Naira did yesterday. We're still in a positive mood for the Naira. We see just a gain on NAFEM, 0.20%. The Naira opened at 1,574 Naira 20 kobo, but closed at 1,570 Naira 99 kobo. Of course, the Dutch auction is still on, and we hope it is sustained. But, you know, we still have some unanswered questions about the frequency, the target, and all of that. We hope to hear from the central bank real soon. For NAFEX, it was almost unchanged for the second day. That's what we had yesterday from Friday to Monday. So Monday to Tuesday, also, NAFEX seems to be stabilizing right there. But I can't say the same for the parallel market, which is one of the stories that senior associate with financial derivatives company, Dumebi Oluwale, comes in with. Dumebi, it's been a while since I had you here. I know it's been you and Ladi, so it's good to let's do the girls thing this morning.
I'm happy to do that.
Great. So we see we've been celebrating that the gap between the Naira, the official market and the parallel market has reduced. I wonder if we should be worried again, because we see since last week, since they started the Dutch auction system. We've seen in the official market the Naira gaining, but in the parallel market, which, you know, we would say is more accessible because these are to the banks mostly, the Naira has been dropping. Yesterday too, it also dropped in spite of the fact that we had an increase or a gain on the official market.
I mean, some of these things are pretty much expected, right? So you can think of it like low supply causing the price to increase, because now demand is being met to end users through the official market. But then again, if you actually look at where the parallel market rate was before the Dutch auction, which is around 1,622, to what it is right now, you actually see, I think it's about 1,600 Naira, 1,600 to 1,605. So you see that's actually also appreciated. So to some extent, the movement of supply from, you know, the official market is also somewhat, you know, supporting the parallel market, but maybe not as much as what is going on the demand on the official market side. But more importantly, I think, is to look at the dynamics at play in the FX markets right now, and you see that with the reforms that we've taken place, you know, I think when the reforms initially started, I did mention at some point that interventions like this are things that we will see somewhat sparingly, because now we're in a world where the CBN is not expected to intervene subsequently in the market. We're now in a world where it's a willing buyer and willing seller market. So if there's no supply, we'll definitely see the markets react and the prices will go high. But if demand is excess demand and supply is not meeting, we'll also see the exchange rate market react. And when we see backlogs like this, I mean, from the retail auction report or press release that the CBN shared, we saw like there was a backlog of about $1.1 billion, right? So you see that because of how much that backlog was, the CBN had to step in. So in this world, basically, we'll definitely see more things like this, but not subsequently. The CBN would only intervene in manners like when we're seeing like so much backlog and supply of FX
the backlog
is not so much.
Now, but I think the comforting thing is we've seen FX inflow increase, we've seen our reserve increase, so CBN actually has the power, the purchasing power to intervene at this time, even though it shouldn't be, as you said, a normal thing, the intervention. But we need them. Do we need them to intervene with the BDCs, because they've been doing it with the banks?
Yes, I mean, the CBN, they released a circular that they also sold some dollars to BDCs at some point before this retail auction happened.
Okay,
so we're seeing them step in.
We haven't seen them do the Dutch system with...
So I think this is it. we need to also understand like where the BDCs are placed in the FX markets, right? So they definitely supply to myself and you, they supply, you know. So the expectation is that because of how much the backlog was on the commercial banks side, which gives dollars directly to businesses that need it for imports, that will now provide the commodities that myself and you. So at that point in time, you realize that the intervention was very necessary for these businesses because of how significant they are to the overall economy. So to meet like smaller FX demand, I think that they're already doing I think that they're doing good enough with BDCs, and I definitely still see them, you know, engage more in supplying BDCs with dollars. But I think it's also important for us to recognize the fact that what the CBN is doing in this position that we are now, and I think I said last time I was here with Ladi, the CBN is doing what it can and what it should in this current climate that we're in. Nigeria has taken up so much reforms that are definitely, you know, hitting people on the side, but it's not one way, right? We do have two parties involved that are running this economy.
I hear you calling out the fiscal authority.
And I'm doing it very boldly today because we cannot sideline the effort that the CBN is taking up, right? And they can only do so much. They only have so much levers to pull. Interest rates and interventions when necessary, right, to ensure that prices are stable. We've seen them take these steps, and it's painfully so, right? And so we definitely need more support to what they are doing from the fiscal side. If not, we'll just keep, you know, dancing around.
Yeah, well, if we did have this conversation, I would have pushed you to the fiscal side, so you tell us. But let's talk about oil production. We saw a bit of that good news, about 30 barrels per day increase in our production. Certainly good news for us. We hope it's sustained. But can we expect this to trickle down to the local refiners? There's been a lot of issue around that, and Dangote being a giant in the industry, because I know that I've been talking to modular refiners, and they've been complaining, but their voice haven't been heard. It's too low, but Dangote is a giant, so we've been hearing, and it seems it's now that the problem is receiving attention. Can we expect that, for instance, this 2.3% increase in crude maybe will be channeled to them, because they're even asking for more now? And Port Harcourt refinery is coming up. It's supposed to also be a part of domestic crude consumption.
I mean, I can't say if this 2.34% will trickle down to Dangote or even the modular refineries. But what I will say is we are now at that point where we cannot do without producing to supply these refineries. We are at the point where Nigeria has become too exposed to global shocks. And if we're not producing enough, we can't even supply our own refineries. Talk more of, you know, thinking of exporting as much, right? So we're at that point where we need to have these conversations, and not just only have the conversations. I think the time for execution and implementation it was since yesterday, right? Or some decade ago. So it's time for us to actually start doing these things and making sure that we are able to refine our own crude and then supply the domestic market, so that the reforms that we've taken, you know, we'll begin to see them actually have the broad-based impact on the economy. Because from an economy standpoint, what you believe, or not what we believe, from numbers and what we have on our expectations, and this is even cutting across other economic agents, right? The expectation is that because we are producing oil, right, we do have functioning refineries. They are not just getting crude and they're not refining as much as they should. We have this somewhat infrastructure in place, and we also have a Dangote. Let us produce enough, sell to them. Right. Let us refine and supply to ourselves.
So the problem maybe is we have obligations, and even the NDPRC had come out to say they can't even meet up with what the PIA has allocated to domestic refiners because of our obligations. We have loans that are backed by crude. So that puts us in a very tight corner.
It does, and that's why we need to address the issues that are making us not produce enough. Because when you think about where Nigeria was in terms of crude oil production, some 20 years ago or some 10 years ago, we were producing up to 2 million barrels per day. And because of that, when you even look at our budgets, right, you see that the government did have the confidence to put an oil production estimate of about 1.8 million barrels per day, 1.7, 1.6, before we started, reducing it, just cutting it down. So what does this tell you? It means we do have that capacity, right? But we're not just doing what we should do to produce that capacity or produce at our optimum capacity. And it's very simple. What is making you not producing up? There's theft, there's vandalism.
But there's a whole lot of effort on dealing with oil theft. To see the Navy, they've arrested, they catch vessels.
Yeah, so what this means is that we're not doing enough. It's just that simple. We're not doing enough. And when we understand how critical this resource is to our economy, we need to deploy more. If we're deploying one tank of the Navy, and 10 troops of the Army, we need to do a lot more. Simply because right now we cannot shy away from the fact that our economy is still extremely dependent on this commodity and the effects we get from it, the earnings we get from it. We're still very susceptible to it. Export earnings, I think from the Q1 foreign trade report, Nigeria's exports is still. I think crude oil accounts for over 70% of that. Yes. So we cannot avoid the conversation of how Nigeria
totally green.
Exactly. We can't go totally.
Let me ask, because I don't know if you saw the news. I think it was last week or so, where they went to, was it Akwa Ibom State or River State, and illegal refinery sites and things like that. And people ask, isn't it possible to legalize those areas so that we can capture some of those inputs into the legal system?
I mean, I'm not an oil expert, so I would only speak from an economic standpoint. And I do think that it's a conversation that can be had, right? I don't know how effective that would be, but if these illegal refineries are already refining and are already, to some extent, instead of maybe destroying the infrastructure that is already there, there is a world where we could absorb some of those resources and maybe make them legal. But then again, there are also consequences, right? So I do think that right now with some of these oil production issues that we found ourselves in, there's not enough consequence for some of these things. And even if there are consequences, it's not publicly made. So that's why I think to an extent some of these refineries have still been bold enough to continue. So there's that world where we need to just clean up and sanitize the entire oil production sector for Nigeria to optimally produce.
All right, we're almost out of time, but maybe I think we have a bit of good news. And people say, oh, journalists, they feast on the bad news. Tomatoes, pepper, we see the price has tapered a bit. We don't know for how long, but it's worth mentioning.
Of course, it's a good thing. I, for one, am happy about it.
I know your freezer is stocked at this time. You don't want to say.
Oh my.
Let's not go there.
But I mean, it's definitely good news, right? And even though it's not so much that people are not still equipped to so much income to bulk buy as much, but it's definitely some relief on people's incomes. And one of the reasons why this is happening, we can definitely attribute it to, I think, to the harvest season as well. To the harvest season, there's also some level of little respite when it comes to logistics costs actually towards the wholesale market and also the retail market. Then you also consider the fact that I think the federal government, has been quite supportive. I know that from the time of the protest, they released some bags of rice, and so we're also seeing that. We're also seeing some increased activities from like the borders that were reopened earlier in the year. Yes, and also the import duty suspension as well that has already started kicking in. So we're seeing like positive impacts from there. And when you net it off to look at how long that import duty suspension will last, and the federal government, supportive measures in terms of food, we do expect that at least for up until the end of the third quarter of the year, some of these commodities we might be able to see like this price decline sustain.
Yeah, okay. But I mean, for Gary, I mean, I think Mr. Rwani did say the other day, so it's the perishables because of the fear of sustained storage. And
exactly.
So we see, okay, cement is down, that's good news. Tomatoes and pepper have gone down also. But when it comes to the dry commodities, Gary, rice, flour, they're still going up because obviously they can be preserved.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Senior Associate Financial Derivatives Company, Jimmy Bioduwadi.
Thank you.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, have you heard of the circular economy? Are you participating there? We'll talk about it after the break. Stay with us.
End your power struggles with iPower Solution. Inverters, solar panels, and batteries. With hybrid inverters ranging from 1,200 watts all-in-one to a whopping 500 kilowatts. iPower is designed and produced by certified renewable energy experts from 5 countries in partnership with Zynos Technologies, specifically for Africa. Durable and cost-efficient power solution for your home, small offices, and large enterprises. What you see is what you get. Order now on Kongu.com or any of our authorized distributors for same-day delivery in most cities in Nigeria. Terms and conditions apply. iPower. Empower tomorrow. Today.
Welcome back to watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We're discussing the circular economy, where this is an economy that has 4 concepts. It's reuse, recycle, waste reduction, and product redesign. And sounds like a whole lot of words put together, the but I mean, we can make it our everyday life. Let's find out how Lagos is doing this now with the Special Advisor, Climate Change and Circular Economy in Lagos, Titilayo Oshodi joins us in the studio. Hi, Titilayo, good morning. Good to have you in the studio.
Morning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I mean, when you talk about the circular economy, obviously, is sustainability. That's the language of the world now. But sometimes it might sound so far away from an average Nigerian. So we want to bring it back home to our everyday life. Tell us about circular economy in practical terms for everyday living.
So for everyday living, let's bring it back to some of the things that we do normally in the house. We would generate waste when we eat, and the leftovers, we pack them and throw them in the dustbin. We would turn up our taps in the toilet. If we do not have the right mechanism, you can leave that tap running, except you have to close it off. You can leave your light, on, in and out. There are ways that we can now start to manage the usage of those things, because the wastage of it is costing a lot more in terms of cost and in terms of the sustainability of emissions, So circular economy is a way of life of reusing, repurposing, remanufacturing, or redirecting the usage of things. Like you have said, it's a lot of but it's actually being able to look at what we use or what we enjoy with the end in view. For instance, our clothing, our plastics, our tires, our e-waste, the machines, the equipment that we use. Circular economy brings to bear how you can repurpose or reuse or recycle or remodel these items so that they're not ending up in the landfills and ultimately degenerating in thousands of years that actually accrue to the emissions, the carbon emissions that seems to be affecting our climate as of today. So that's
I think an interesting part, especially at this time in Nigeria, is you talked about how that can help reduce cost of living, for instance, the lights, but getting it into the mind, I think, is another thing, because we know, obviously, like countries like the UK, where that your light bill is going to directly reflect your usage you don't need anybody to remind you. When you pay for the first week or the first month, you remind yourself. But how do we get to that point here in Nigeria?
So for us in Nigeria, we're a very peculiar society because a lot of things have been provided en masse for us in so many ways, or whatever it is that we have that sense that we have everything provided for us. Like you have said, because there are institutional mechanisms and infrastructure are based on a monetized basis, people are very clear, they're very dimensional, and they're very intentional about the usage. In Nigeria, we need to get on that journey, on that track of changing behavior. And one of the things that we have been able to identify is that we need to start to incentivize people to get to understand that there are benefits that are available or that are inherent in the waste that they generate. So in letting people know that your plastics can actually be exchanged, you can have them through a grand metric system and you can get money in return for it, or you can have it exchanged for any social amenity that is provided in Lagos. Some of the integration models or integration systems that are available within this administration is the platforms with LASRA that provides access to subsidy in transportation, through the cowrie card, subsidy through Lagos, the health insurance scheme, subsidy through even the Ministry of Education for tuition. So our mothers who are sitting at home, who are taking care of their children, who are the homemakers, and they generate waste through food, through plastic, through clothing, can actually begin to manage the usage of these items.
Perhaps you should tell us how people can key into that.
Well, so there are already business membership organizations who are already working in that space. So they're already creating the ecosystems. And one of our jobs is right now to start to deliberately and strategically position these business membership organizations in communities, but first and foremost, we need to start to sensitize people to say, listen, start harvesting your waste. Do not throw them away. Do not dispose of them irresponsibly. You can have them in exchange for value, whatever it is that you want. And we've started with that communication, that community trail to communicate these values to them.
So as a parent, maybe a woman in the house, the children, you talked about the issue of school fees,
yes.
The crown card?
Yeah, cowrie card.
Cowrie, thank you. The cowrie card.
With the Ministry of Transport.
Showing my ignorance on there, yes. The cowrie card.
Yes.
Do I have to put my plastics in bins or special bins to access that? How exactly can I do that?
So if you know that Loma already had started with this sensitization and integration system, driving households, even through schools, secondary schools and primary schools, to say that there are bins that are labeled in color codes, and these bins have different purposes. They have different components that you should harvest them in. So there's a place for paper, there's a place for plastic, there's a place for organic waste. Right. So at home, at the household level, at source, people are encouraged to start to sort their items, their waste, especially those that they know that they can hand over either to the PSP. Those are the people who come with the trucks, those that are come, even the organic ones right now. We're beginning to find a way to create some waste valorization model so that people can exchange their organic waste. So we're going into schools, we're going into communities, because we also understand that children are very, very great influencers. If they get to hear from their teacher that they can earn money, they can earn, some form of reward for the plastics that they bring, they can go back home and spread the word to their parents as well.
So do you have a length of time people have to do it for? Or when the PSP comes to my house and I give them a bin, do I have to register, models like that?
So I don't think that the PSP have that model. But I think that because we're beginning to populate not just the PSP angle of it, but there are also, we're beginning to develop businesses. There are already, we have what we call an EBN, a business network, where we're beginning to harness the scalability, the operations of business organizations that already have started to pull, different households and different communities to let them know that they can come and collect their plastics for them. So if you have, for instance, 1 kilogram of plastics can be is in exchange for 600 naira right now. So if we go to the communities, especially the vulnerable or the rural communities, and drive that kind of communication and sensitivity to say, just put them aside, you will have people who will come and, they will connect with you. These are the sort of network that we're trying to establish within our rural communities.
Yeah, it sounds like something that will sell in Lagos. I mean, direct incentive for, managing your waste properly. And I'm sure we'll get updates on that in due course.
Yes, we were working on that.
Thank you so much. Special Advisor, Climate Change and Circular Economy in Lagos State. This is Layo Oshodi. Thank you for your time. I wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that's it. It's a direct incentive for you to manage your waste. I guess it's good enough for us to be part of it. We're heading back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. Don't be afraid of that. But let's just look at the numbers for yesterday right there and see. We lost that intraday green that we had at during Business Incorporated yesterday. So we saw the market drop. I lost even the 98,000 that Anita was so excited about. Now at 97, that's what we closed with yesterday. 55.5 trillion naira. We still see the market, the fugas still getting profits, profit taking still happening on them. But oil and gas is looking really good now. Might be too late for you to get it. Maybe just wait for another chance. We'll give you updates, fresh figures, intraday figures at 1 p.m. during Business Incorporated. I'll be back with Anyeti Edets. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.
That is not their first Olympics, it's not their second, it's not their third, it's not their fourth. About people that in the last 24 years perhaps have been coming to Olympics every 4 years. Beyond the ministry, in terms of the leadership, in terms of the federation, in terms of NOC, in terms of, we have plenty people who have been, even if Nandumelu who is president. I'm sure he's attended, countless. And the way I feel is that I don't understand how, because I know how just one Olympics, I know how much it has impacted on me, on my thinking, on my imagination that things shouldn't be this way. Olympics is not what you come and disgrace yourself. So if you want to avoid that disgrace, you must work hard to be able to do well in order not to get out disgraced.
Well, that's the Minister of Sport, Mr. Senator John Owaeno, talking about what happened to Nigeria at the just concluded Olympics in Paris 2024. On the brighter side of things, at least we know that our Paralympics team are set to go out now for the Paralympic Olympics, which will be happening immediately after. Just in case you're wondering, how much did Nigeria vote for this Olympics where we didn't do so well? Well, we did not even do well at all because, yes, we qualified for some final competitions, but we came home with no medals. 9 billion naira was what was approved for that. 9 billion naira. Well, I don't know how it is that we're going to come to terms with the loss that we have experienced at this just concluded Olympics. We also had the same situation in 2012, London 2012. So as it was in 2012, so it is in 2024. How do we ensure that it's not the same way in 2036? I have with me this morning a very seasoned sports administrator. Ahmed Shuaib Garagombe is a former chairman of the Gombe State Football Association, and we're going to be talking about our just concluded performance at the Paris Olympics. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning, Mope, and thank you for having me once again.
A rather depressing outing we had at the Paris Olympics. As at Friday, I watched my colleague Cecilia Omorogbe, try to anchor Sports Tonight, and she was finding it very difficult to lift herself out of the mood, out of the disappointment that had become of our outing at the Paris 2024. But some people will say it's no surprise. It's no surprise given, just what it is that we have put into sports over the last couple of years. And it is what we have put in that we're truly reaping. How would you respond to that?
Well, thank you. I'm glad you said Cecilia and her colleagues, they had always been talking about sports, bringing all sorts of resource persons to talk about it. But unfortunately, like I said, when you aggregate the contents of analysis and propositions on Channels TV alone and put it into sports, I can tell you things could have changed. But unfortunately, nobody listens. By the way, you cannot plant onions and cultivate oranges. It's not possible. What you put in is what you get. Unfortunately, what happened in Paris is a product of so many factors, from funding, to infrastructure, to manpower, to accountability, to corruption, and if you like, also to the welfare of athletes. So it's a combination of so many factors. Unfortunately, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that is exactly what happened. I've been listening to excuses. Those excuses? Excuses, yes. So the excuses coming from those who are in charge of our sports. Unfortunately, it's not acceptable because there are other countries who were lesser countries than us in terms of antecedents, in terms of resources, in terms of even the number, the type of the athletes that we have that did very well. Everyone knows that in the calendar of world sports, 4 years, Maupe, there is Olympics. So how can you give an excuse that you did not plan, or because you come either as a minister or you come as whoever, that, oh, you have less than 1 year to plan? That is not the excuse we should be talking about. And again, the funding. I do not know where Mr. President is getting that money with all the talks about fixing economy and the rest. I am not sure, if I stand to be corrected, if there is any president in Nigeria that has released money within 7-8 months into sports like President Tinubu did. When we came, or rather when he came into office, immediately we had the All African Games in Ghana. He released all the money that we needed in billions. After that, we had the African Cup of Nations in Ivory Coast. He released all the money that we needed. We now had the Olympics. He released all the money that we needed.
Yeah, but even
now, apart from that, sometimes it's not even the money. Give the vault of a central bank to someone who is not competent. He will waste all the money without result. And that is the problem that we have had. In terms of funding, the federal government did everything possible. Now, before we go to the next stage, it is time for accountability.
Well, sorry, are you saying, well, maybe you're going to refer to it in the issue of accountability. You just said give somebody the key to the vault of the central bank. He will spend all of the money without showing any results. Are you holding any group of people or any one person responsible for what has happened? Of course, I will start with
unfortunately, I will start with the Minister of Sports.
You hold him responsible?
Yes, I will hold him responsible. He's in charge of sports. When you are given responsibility of an office, you accept everything that comes with that office. You can't have any excuse. Even the president, we are calling his name for everything.
Yeah, but you know that the preparations for sports is not going to be something that happens within the period in which he's coming to office.
That is what I am saying. Everybody knows that in 4 years there is an Olympics.
Yeah.
So whatever situation that he has found on the ground, he still have time, 1 year. I mean, it is not every part of the Olympics that you need 4 years to plan. It's not every one of it. Now tell me, from every sport that we had participated, okay, you are paying camp allowance for players, for athletes in the middle of Olympics. You are paying training grants in the middle of the Olympics. Who does that? You pay them training grants before that. Or are we saying that the training grants also you need 4 years to plan to pay? No. So it is a question of efficiency. It's a question of know-how. And for goodness sake, when the President Minister came, he did admit that he is ready to learn. But unfortunately, when the diagnosis is wrong, the prescription would be wrong, would be faulty. If you say you are ready to learn, then talk to everybody. But you surround yourself with people who cannot give you the right direction. You try now to excise and disenfranchise certain people who are going to look into your face and tell you the truth. As I'm talking to you here, I had the privilege of meeting him when he first came to his first 2 months in the office. I sat down with him up, he gave me about 15, 20 minutes and I talked to him. He was shocked at what I was revealing to him. He said, please, Gara, can you put this into a document to me, which I did and hand over to him. One of the issues that I raised in that document with him is preparation for the Olympics. And I gave him 43 names of Nigerians. I said, this is a pool of seasoned administrators, journalists, technocrats in sports that can help you. Put them together and ask for advice. None of that was done. And again, in terms of the preparation for the Olympics, I said, put together a task force. Remember, we had a good outing in Atlanta 96.
That was a long time ago.
Yes, long time ago. Why I'm talking, I want to make reference to Atlanta, where we got our first gold medal in the Olympics. We got our first gold medal for Africa in football. How do we get that? Let Alex Akinyele, the former sports minister, may his soul rest in peace. Immediately we came back from Barcelona 92, which we did not do so well, actually. But it's better than Paris anyway. The day we came back, that was when he set up a committee to start preparing for Atlanta. And we prepared for Atlanta, and what happened? The outcome of that initiative is what we got. So, talking about on the same line, you cannot sit down and think that the few people around you are the ones that are going to advise you and to prepare you to produce an Olympic outing that Nigerians are going to be proud of. So, like I was trying to say, it's a combination of so many factors. Now, another thing in terms of...
And combination of so many factors, let me quickly come in there, because in the wake of our very disappointing outing, for those who are wondering why I said, will it be, how do we prevent such a situation from happening in 2036? I'm not implying that the Olympics only happen every 12 years, but it does appear that every 12 years, we come home with no medal. I mean, in 2012, at the London Olympics, we came home with no medal. 12 years after, in 2024, we're coming home with no medal. How do we know that in 2036, we will not come home with any, if we continue in this manner? But some people will say, Alhaji, let me come to you, to what some people will say about how, there needs to be preparation. Because at the grassroots level, there have been lots of articles written on what has happened with our performance so far, so good. I don't know whether you have seen this particular one written by DK Chukwu Merije, who was pretty prominent in the university taekwondo in those days. His brother, Chika Chukwu Merije, is a medalist, an Olympic medalist. And he talked about his experience, even for Nuga, things as simple as Nuga, our national sports festival, and how preparations are always awful for even those, sports that are happening at a national level. So it's no surprise what is happening at the international stage. We take that, what he calls perennial anyhowness, to the international scene. So if we're not doing great by our local athletes, isn't it that same attitude that we will transmit to the international stage? Yes,
like I said, you cannot plant onions and expect to cultivate a banana. It's what you put in is what you get. Completely, we have abandoned school sports. And let me give you this example. Last year, I organized inter-primary school athletics championship in Gombe State. Inter-primary school? Inter-primary school. Without single kobo from government. I did that. When I did that, Athletics Federation of Nigeria could not even send even a single letter of encouragement. It does not matter to them. Secondly, the same Athletics Federation of Nigeria produced a calendar of events for 2024 there was no single grassroots competition. Everything is travel. 95% of the content of that program is travel. Outside Nigeria, there's no grassroots. As I speak to you, we have training grants for development of grassroots sports in world athletics. For 3 years, Athletics Federation of Nigeria could not access it. For 3 years. So we abandoned it. Now, coming to that, go back to our school's curriculum system. We should have, or rather we had included in the curriculum of our schools the physical and health education. That's where the school sports starts. We abandoned the school sports. I had been saying there should be synergy between the Federal Ministry of Education and Federal Ministry of Sports and see how these school sports could be. The School Sports Federation, Youth Fund, and all these organizations were meant to develop sports at the grassroots. So from there, they now progress. Now we had, if you see the products of what we had in Gombe, from that inter-primary school, they went to youth games in Asaba, they got some medals. They went to MTN champions in Jos, they got some medals. Now we are doing secondary school by next year. That is the way to go. And we are saying that is the template. If every state in Nigeria is going to do that. Chukwumerije that you talked about, I met him about twice.
Which one of the Chukwumerije?
The Olympian.
The Olympian.
The Olympian.
Okay. But it was his brother, DK, that wrote the article.
Yes, we discussed about that training program. He came in with some beautiful ideas, but who listens to him? None. Igali, who is a commissioner now in Delta State, wrestling, they are doing very well because he's a commissioner. If he's out of Gama, I don't know what will happen. Now, there are so many initiatives. Now, Nigerians are in diaspora. Many of them, they have ideas. They have ways to contribute from training, apart from training, from equipment, from know-how, from even contacts. But nobody wants to listen to them. I remember one of these, our foremost athletes in basketball, Akim Olajuwon. There was a time Akim shipped a container load of various equipment to Nigeria some years back. That complete container disappeared to support sports in Nigeria. So there are so many letters. So like I said,
that container disappeared?
Yes. Sports industry in Nigeria today, I can tell you without apology, is one of the, if not the most corrupt industry you can think of, where there is free money without accountability. I have never seen anybody in the sports industry that has gone to prison, to jail for mismanagement or misappropriating funds. And that is why people do what they like and get away with it.
And you're just about to talk about accountability, even though sometimes, I mean, these days, sports has also become political, because we know that when, you know, if our athletes had done well now, the administration would have taken some credit. Sports minister would have been very happy, would have taken the medals to the president with the athletes and would have all been happy. And, you know, perhaps even the administration will add it to their list of things that they have done well, list of accomplishments and achievements. But this is how it has now become. We did not win anything, despite the best efforts. And I think that must be said, despite the best effort of our athletes. And some of them have really, really given themselves to their craft, regardless of what is going on around them. We can cite, is it the Tigress, you know, who really made an effort, especially at the quarterfinals, pushing Nigeria in the basketball game. We saw them in Paris. Is it our athletes, you know, who continue to make great strides in spite of all that is happening? I mean, but right now, we know that Mr. Peter Obi has called for a probe into what is currently happening within the sports arena, that this particular embarrassment shouldn't happen again. Is it something that you agree with?
I want to say this, politics aside, whatever Peter Obi said is correct, is right. He's a Nigerian, he has the right to call for probe. And most of us are called for proof, not only of the Olympics. We have to prove the All Africa Games in Ghana. We have to prove the African Cup of Nations in Ivory Coast. I can tell you, the billions Mr. President released for payment of Super Eagles allowances, they have not been paid. They have not been paid.
As we speak?
As we speak. They have not been paid. If they paid, let them publish. I challenge anybody to come here and present to you that they have been paid. They have not been paid. And let me tell you, these girls that you saw, the Tigress, they did well. Most of them are in diaspora. They take their career on their own, sponsor themselves to get to where they are. Even the coach, Wakama, who turned out to be the best coach of the Olympics, who all that she has done, she was in diaspora. There is nothing we contribute as a nation to their development. If the former Minister of Sports on the direct did not suspend the Tigres for 2 years from participation, which they missed one of the World Championship, if they had gone that, their experiences they are going to get from that, they could have gone beyond quarterfinals of this very Olympics. So these are some of the things that we always lament and we talk about. Now, this accountability that we are talking about, everywhere in the world, Mope, sports is a private sector-led industry. It's never a government thing. Government only provides the enabling environment. In Nigeria, it's the other way around. Because government always release money to the industry. And most of the things our administration do is to blackmail the government. Because they know people follow sports to blackmail government. Nobody does that anywhere in the world I have seen, where government is taking the lead, releasing money anyhow without this accountability. Now, most of the major sponsors, the corporate world, and that's why I said there is no serious corporate organization that you see him putting this in. So all the ministers of sport that we have had, there's none of them that did not invite the private sector to come into sport. They will not come. These are companies multinationals, who believe in transparency, accountability, and good governance. And these are factors that are absent from management of our sports. CBN, Mobil, Coca-Cola. Do you know it was Coca-Cola Championship those days that produced the likes of Bose Kapo, Funkyo Ishinashike, and Atanda Musa, and the rest of it? Where are they today? In tennis, we have CBN Championship. Do you know there was a time in this country, CBN were sponsoring football, called CBN Cup. Prize money, just 5 million between Lagos and Abuja. Someone took a plane from Abuja to Lagos to Abuja. As he landed, he said the money got missing. And nothing happens. Until that time, CBN pulled out from sponsoring of sports. What happened to Mobile and Track? Total. Mention them. Mike Adunaga was one of the major businessmen in Nigeria that came to Glo, through Glo to sponsor sports. He pulled out. Name them. There are so many examples I can give you. Even Super Sports that came from South Africa. All of them pulled out for these three factors. We are not transparent. We are not accountable. We don't promote good governance in it. So nobody is going to come.
Are we irredeemable? Is it an irredeemable situation?
We are irredeemable. It depends on leadership and political will. Let Mr. President tell us today he's ready to send some people to jail. We provide the evidence to send some people to prison. No single person in sport has been sent to Kirikiri prison or Kuje prison. That is why people go and collect money, waste it, and nobody asks them a question. We had somebody in this country that embezzled billions in money of sports, but he came back now to ask Nigeria to sponsor him or promote him to go for FIFA elections. ICPC and EFCC, if they are serious, they want to go deep into sport, they have so many petitions before them. What did they do with it? So if we are not serious, it's not the issue that we are not irredeemable, whether we have the political will. So we have to go in. By the time we do that, and I want to say, I had the minister saying that the sports is not going, the next federation's elections is not going to be, will change the leadership, the face of Nigerian sports. No, it is not about sports, federations' elections. It's not about their constitutions. There's nothing wrong with the federation's constitution. Yes, there is something wrong with their electoral processes, but there's nothing wrong with their constitutions. The minister should know that all these constitutions are aligned to the international bodies. So you cannot just sit down in Nigeria and change it. It is our will to make sure that the right people are there. No, Nigeria Olympic Committee, for instance, they receive grant from International Olympic Committee every year that there is Olympics. They receive grant. Has anyone asked them, how much are you receiving from outside? All the federations, all of them, without exception, we have 32 or 36 Olympic and non-Olympic sports. 90% of them used to receive grants. Where has that grant been coming from? What did they do with that grant? Who did they tell about that grant? There are few of them, the presidents of the federation, who use their personal money. That's okay. It's interest. You ask for it, you have to. But the laziness of us and over-reliance of government, of lack of accountability, that is why we always sit down and we wait for the government to bring in money. And when the government does not do that, we now blackmail the government and we said the government did not do that. Do you remember? I listened to one of the former sports ministers saying that he borrowed money from 15 million from late Uba to fund Olympic Games this in preparation. I'm not sure if he has paid late Ivan Yuba that money. The same minister borrowed $300,000 from one Yomi Udowu, who is based in the United States. As at the time our team was stranded in Atlanta, 3 days to our opening game in Brazil Olympics. Till today, they have not paid him. The same minister, former minister, and the former president of the federation collected that money from that guy. Yomi Udowu is still alive, he's not dead. And I remember, I think it's in the gene, the DNA of the family. It was his father who gave us the first 100,000 naira in 1990 to start the league we were doing. So when I listen to people coming to talk about management of resources in sport, I said, let us have a transitional disengagement of government from funding sports.
Okay, so while we have that, while the administrative side is being, set up properly, what should happen to the athletes in the meantime? Because we cannot just wait until that is done before we begin to concentrate on the athletes who are going to go for the next Olympics.
We need a presidential committee with a clear mandate, first and foremost, to go around the world, pacify, talk to our athletes. We have so many athletes outside there that are running for various countries. I'm not too sure if this lady, Ophili, will not change her nationality because of what happened. And that lady, it was just excuses they are giving. They punish her because she did not run in Cameroon. And she's not the only one who did not run in Cameroon. They tried to punish her. They removed this in her name. And psychologically affected her performance. Look at Toby. You know, Toby Amusan. When she went to All Africa Games, as at the time even they finished All Africa Games, 3 months after, her ticket refund to come to Ghana was not paid. So all these things, first and foremost, like I said, let us go after all those diasporans. Because as of today, they are the ones who are helping Nigeria. Secondly, we come back home and revive school sports. 3, we have to entrench accountability and prove to punish some people because the records are there. 4, we have to develop manpower. 5, and give what do you call it, a template for accountability. This same minister, I told him, ask the Sports Federation to be giving you quarterly report from finances to technical to management, so that you will know what is happening. I don't think if he has done that. So these are some of the things we have to put in and go back to revive school sport. Can you imagine 9 billion? We have not put one goal post.
Really, really a shame. Really, really a shame. And I see the messages here from some of our viewers on this particular matter. Amadou Emmanuel says Nigeria's performance was applaudable on the athletes' part, but a total embarrassment on the Ministry of Sports part. You could tell the athletes gave it their all. How can a whole nation not be able to prepare for a tournament that everybody knows happens? I think you mean every 4 years. Every 4 years, 2 years here. I can't imagine being that athlete that had to borrow that tricycle.
Yes, tricycle from the
Germans. It is really an embarrassment.
How much is it that you cannot go into the next shop across in Paris to buy?
These are some of the scandalous stories that we heard, but we really do hope that, we are able to do something and turn the tide.
Even borrow relay button.
We sincerely hope that will not be the situation. We hope that this will be the last Olympics that we come back medallist. But I have to thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Ahmed Shoaib Gara Gombe is a former chairman, Gombe State Football Association. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you for having me.
Francis Akimbo Ewa, we also see your tweet here that our country with over 200 million people could not win 1 medal in Paris Olympics is something to mull about. It is embarrassingly embarrassing. And I totally concur with you on that. Well, thank you so much for watching this morning and for being a great part of this program. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf, wishing you a very great day ahead.